stumbling around here. Hi, Lori. Well,
Hey,
hi, Corey. Corey, I haven't seen you in a while. And Alexis, and then somebody whose name I don't know. Rdiawara. If you want to unmute.
It's
And
Roxanne Dwara. I'm with the Elton Department Senior Services.
oh, hi, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So I'm hot. I'm in Seattle. It's like
Wow.
I'm baking. I see a fan on there. It's been
it's hot everywhere.
Yeah, it is hot everywhere. It's been brutal. Okay, so the discussion questions. The first was what additional preparation would have helped me. I'm like in my own mind thinking back to an early negotiation I had when I first went to work at University of Washington. This is a long, long time ago, and was competing for a grant with a new leader of early childhood special education in Olympia. And we decided to come together, and we were both kind of competitive people. And the grant was like, it turned out okay, but it was kind of miserable the whole time. So I had wished, that I had this instruction before I jumped into that. So if you all will think about a negotiation in your mind that like mine, it kind of worked, but ended up not working, or it didn't go the way that you planned. So get something in your mind about something that you've done, and think about what would have helped you before you started negotiating, what kind of prep you might have done. Anybody, does that bring anything to mind for anyone?
I mean, we do it on a daily basis, right? It's hard to just think about one particular moment.
Feel free to unmute and just hop in.
Can you turn your volume up, Rosalind?
I'm so sorry. I've been having problems with my volume today, and I've turned on and off my computer. Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you now. I couldn't
Better
hear.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll use my outdoor voice.
Okay, good.
I think we're an outdoor voice kind of people.
Well, I was just reflecting that we use these techniques every day in so many circumstances. It's hard to just narrow it down to one situation. I mean, I think about all the contracts we deal with. I think about, our projects that we work on, and it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
I think for myself, just having as much information ahead of time about who's coming to the table, what they're bringing to the table, what the project at hand is asking for us to do, so that we can figure out who's doing what, and everybody is in a win-win situation as much as possible, so they all feel heard and listened to and acknowledged.
Right.
That's what I found to be helpful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think that's pretty brilliant. I mean, I'm thinking back to my work with different states that has sustainability projects who, when you're getting a grant, you're going for money, you just kind of want to get everybody together and get that grant in, which doesn't always give you the time to do what Rosalind was describing. And so some of the threats to those grants was putting those partnerships together really fast, but not spelling out those details, so that some commitments were never really specified. And sometimes resources weren't checked to see if promises could be kept from partners. So that what you're saying, I think, about is having all the information ahead of time, it just lets you know if it's even feasible to negotiate something. But yeah, that's really great. Anybody else have any insights about?
I can go. Actually, well, this is Alexis from North Dakota. A little ironic because I'm actually going to share a personal story from today that translates into the work side of things as well. I had a quote done for driveway caulking and for mud jacking, and I negotiated a lower price and saved about $400 with one of them because I offered to mutually benefit him and do some marketing and write a Google review for him if I'm satisfied with his services. So I think that can really translate over into the professional world, because you can always look, let's say, for a better deal or for a better mutually beneficially contract or mutual beneficial partnership if you just throw out there and just be open and transparent about what you're seeking or what you want, and then turning that back to them for how they can benefit and what they can gain from it too.
Right. So you kind of bartered. I love that too. And I love that I always think about this when we put budgets together, we tend to think in terms of money, but resources are, yeah, expertise, space, technology. I mean, we have to think about resources really like more holistically, which is what you did. You offered up a talent. So yeah, that's a great example.
Sounds like a collaborative method.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I can share too. So on a more professional side, so I just awarded 3 mini grant awards last week for starting some new respite services for day center services in my state. Yeah, super excited.
Yeah.
And had quite a few applications, so was impressed. And 2 of them that I awarded, one of them mentioned the same city as another one for starting in. So I will have to do some negotiating with them to say, hey, maybe we want to focus on this other city because, grantee B is already going to be in this city. So again, kind of with that open, honest, and transparency with him, using that tactic, and still trying to support him and collaborate him, and showing that I want to help him too. But just, I think always just that open transparency. And then what Rosalind had emphasized about just providing all facts and make sure education and everything is all out there on the table.
Yeah. And also just like seeing this as an opportunity to have more instead of just shutting one down or like duplicating services that, yeah, you were thinking more creatively. Yeah. Nice.
I had a negative thought.
Yeah.
You guys are also positive. I'm gonna be negative Nelly today. No, but it's in the theme. I sometimes get meeting invitations from someone outside my office. It's a half hour. There's no agenda. There's no, like, it's kind of a pet peeve. Like, I don't think anybody reads them, but I'll be like, the purpose of this meeting is, like something to tell me why we're meeting. Well, of course, I'm going to accept because it's from a colleague in my agency, and it must have something to do with something I do. And then I go look to see who's coming to the meeting and try to figure out what I know what a lot of people do. So what do they do? But like that simple step of just even like 2 sentences of the purpose of this meeting is to talk about a new grant opportunity to provide popsicles to kids during the summer. Okay. Even if it's short and sweet, it's like, so you get there and everybody's like, okay, the opposite, but that can happen.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people realize, like, we're all moving so fast. I don't want to like demean the people I work with, but like everybody's working so fast. Somebody says, "Oh, put a meeting on the calendar and invite Lori and Greg and Sheila." Okay, because right.
No, I think that's really right. It's actually a nice segue into that notion of the use of probing, because the probing in negotiations that Cheryl talked about, not exactly, but kind of skillful questioning, sincere discussion, genuine interest. So it's like you're thinking ahead of time, like, here's why it's important for you to be here. Here are our mutual interests. I'm going to make this worth your time. And then when you get there, I'm going to really listen to you. And it's going to be this collaborative discussion where everybody's needs are heard, hopefully to get to a place where they're met. So that, I think that's like the first step in that, right? That you just aren't asking people to come in on faith and like feel that discomfort you feel in a meeting where you don't know where it's going, or like what are you going to be asked to do?
Hello. Hi, I'm Lori. But I am a collaborator, I believe. So that's why it makes it, I think for some people, I think maybe depending on your style, that may have more impact on you than another person. Because I think if I was competitive, I'd just go in and be like, well, whatever it is, I'm going to get what I want.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
I'm a collaborator. So it's like, okay, what's this about? You know, what do I bring to the table? What, you know, so I'm like
Yeah.
looking at it from, because I think that impacts how we view some of the obstacles or what have you, like
Right,
what our style is.
right. And I think like we're all busy. And so that if we think there's going to be an ask, we want to feel like enough. Well, one of the things Cheryl talked about was relationships, which I thought was really important. So it's like that we have a trusting relationship with this person or organization, and that we know the ask is going to be kind of high on our priorities. So we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we don't really have much invested in this organization, and then they make an ask, and then we, like you're in this kind of terrible position of how do you how do you wiggle out of this one? So
I think what Cheryl was saying, like if you're in the situation I'm talking about, or even if you like know who the people are, but you don't quite have the gist of it, so then you have to kind of like, if they don't just kick off with the reason I called you all together here today, you know, it's sort of like they start talking and it's like, okay, is this in relation to it? You know, you try to politely kind of find out from them.
right,
Oh
right,
yeah, you work on the, you know, the ABC project. So
right.
does this
So
have to
here's
do
the
with the
reason I
ABC
asked
and
you.
lifespan respite? Maybe there's something, you know, but like in a
Yeah,
polite way, because I'm a collaborator and I respect my colleagues, even if I'm here and have no clue what's going on.
well, I think this relates to what Rosalind was saying, like the very first thing you shared, Rosalind, is like having as much information ahead of time, like so that person going to the meeting. But and I think what you were saying really maps onto those probing questions, that probing and negotiations, skillful questioning and sincere discussion. So I'm kind of curious, like how you do your homework. How do you know? How do you gather that information? Like when do you gather it? And like you're getting your ducks in a row, but how does that happen in Washington?
Yeah, I really like to be prepared. I'm one of those over preparers. So if I get an invitation to a meeting, I like to find out, like you do, Lori, what's this about? Who's involved? What is the ask? What is my participation? Is this going to be an ongoing meeting? Is this going to be just a one-off? What do I need to bring to the table to be prepared for this meeting? So sometimes what I might do is do a follow-up with somebody, if they send out the invitation and say, what do I need? Do I need to have anything ahead of time? So I will ask because, I don't want to waste anyone else's time. I don't want to waste my time. I want to make this as productive as possible.
Okay, so you go prepared.
I try,
Yeah.
and we're all, sometimes we have a last minute, meeting and then it's just kind of like, okay, then I ask point blank at the beginning. I can be pretty blunt sometimes, okay, so what do you want from me? Why did you ask me to come to this meeting?
Yeah.
Other times it's like a larger group, and so that might not be appropriate. So I just hope that unfolds as we go.
But like if you contact the person ahead of time, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you thinking when you included me?
Why am I here? What?
Exactly.
I'm not a part of that.
Yeah, that way you have a clue as to what's going on before you walk in, instead of going,
Right.
I don't know any of these people and what's this all about?
Right.
Well, that's the worst, but it's like you look and you're like, who are these people?
Right?
Right. Well, and that says a lot about like long-term relationships. Like there's certain people you just get on the phone with because you trust them. The time you spent with them has been well spent. They're prepared. They're going to come through. But like with newer relationships, I love what you're saying, Rosalind, and that skillful questioning, like that Cheryl talked about in negotiations. It sounds like you're advocating for that to happen even like before, to even know if you want to enter the partnership. And I think that's pretty brilliant, actually. I think I'm lazy about that. And that's like really a good really a good idea. I mean, you're making me think like how to do my job better. So that's
I'm
great.
very task oriented in a lot of ways, but in other ways, I've learned to be more open. As she was talking about the different cultures, I do a lot of work with tribes and
Right.
with various cultures in the state. And so I've learned to just focus on the relationship, because half the time that's all you need to do. You can accomplish a task in 10 minutes and spend the whole hour working on the relationship. But
Right.
that gives you the opportunity to ask those questions later on, because you have that relationship to build on, right? You
Right.
can email somebody and say, what was that again? You know,
Right.
because you spent the time building that relationship.
Right. Right. And like not making ask too soon. Like as a researcher, I'm thinking way back to when we did research on inclusion, early childhood school inclusion. And I worked in the Central District in Seattle, and the part of Seattle that I worked in was mostly Asian. And it took me about 6 months of like just making friends, like getting people to know me and trust me, which is not, in university research, you're supposed to just bomb in there and like twist people's arms. And it turned out to this one site turned out to be the best research site. And the research was up on Johns Hopkins for 25 years. It was like really great research from this one site. And it was like, but I just kept going back and hanging out until they till they liked me. I couldn't have done it before then. So that I was thinking about in terms of institutional time and human time.
Yes.
This like, I don't think Cheryl talked about this, but it's like, some of these things are not happening fast, or if they do, they're not going to be fruitful in the long run. I know, like in the work that you've done with tribes, I've seen that evolve over years, right?
Yeah, for
And you
sure.
guys adapt based
Yeah.
on lessons learned.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge that we run into, is that we have these funding sources that are time limited, and we have these grants that are time limited, and all these other things. But that doesn't build in the relationship side of things. It takes so much to lay that foundation, or for even different government agencies building some sort of infrastructure where we can communicate with each other and share data, for example, those kinds of things. That takes so much time, and it doesn't get built into the front end,
Right.
because we're expected to produce right away.
Right. And I love that just knowing the work in Washington State, that it was never looked at as a project where like there's a beginning and okay, we're done, grant cycle's done, or this project's done. There was that long range view was always there, and it was built into the negotiations every step of the way. So I think there's a lot to learn from that, like negotiations, not just now, it
It's
continues.
ongoing. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, what are you thinking, Lori? And we've got like just over a minute left.
Oh, I was just thinking about, we haven't gotten to, but we're like on question 2. But like Alexis, so you have these 3 grants in there, 2 in the one city.
Yeah.
So when you go to meet with the person who can't work in the same city, whichever one you pick, like will that could involve some probing about like what area they're familiar with, or like, because I know you're not going to go in and go, we want you to be there, but you can, like, these kind of, it's kind of I mean, we used to do programmatic negotiations too, with, it's sort of like, well, what other area would fit, that's similar to, one more minute, city A. It's like, I don't know. I think that's fun. That's the fun kind of, I guess, probing, which feels like a harsh word, but,
So Alexis, in like 15 seconds, do you have any insights about how you're muted too, my dear?
yeah, I just put her on this.
No, she's got a lot to say. I'm putting her on the spot too.
I will plan. So one of them is going to be in 2 cities, and then the other one is duplicating that. So I will go to the one I guess there actually would be two approaches with that, because I could go to the one that just has the one city and just, be full and like full that transparency again, and just say, oh, just so you know, there is another grantee who's planning in the city, and I could do the probing with that grantee and ask if they have other options, and then I'll go to the one as well, and the same thing with the probing and the transparency, and see if they have other options or what they would work best for them.
So you're already thinking ahead. Okay, this was great. Thanks, everyone. See you
Yeah,
back.
it's cool because then they'll be satisfied with the result because they'll have a say in it. And
Yeah, they have
that's
some
what
input, some buy-in.
Yeah.
that's what